Welcome to this week's episode of Hollywood Matrimony Live. I have no idea what's happening with this person right beside me.
You didn't like my new sound?
I don't even understand what's happening with
I've
your
decided
new
that's
sound.
going to be my new sound for the show.
Oh, okay.
I put a lot of thought into that.
All right. Well, we have various movies to talk about today, my friends.
I planned this entire thing, that entire moment. I planned it in the last 3 seconds today.
Wow, you put a lot of thought into that.
I'm not even sure I can do that sound again.
You're so funny.
Let's try. That's not the same.
No. All right. So.
Oh, well, epic fail. Moving on.
Hashtag fail. What happened to your hair?
What happened to your hair?
And I brushed my hair.
Well, then you should really be sad. I didn't.
You
still look like that?
You got a Superman curl going on, baby.
This is a hair of somebody that actually worked out in a building with no AC.
Oh, why didn't you turn the AC on?
Because the AC's not working.
Oh.
So it was about 94 to 95 degrees for an hour and a half in our class.
Yeah.
So I had the doors open, had an industrial fan going, people were sweating and looked like they're doing something.
Well,
this is the look of somebody who napped.
I did nap.
While I was doing this.
I had to eat lunch and then I had to nap with my dogs. It was very important to me.
So that's the difference. I spent the day doing art deadlines, chores, teaching my classes. You went to church and sleep.
Mm-hmm. So, sure did, girl. Sure did.
Right. What's up, kid?
All right. So let's talk about some movies. I've got a lot happening on my screen.
Whee!
I've just put things in some random order. And we're going to go there.
Whatever.
All right. So let's talk about this. I had been wanting to see this for a long time. Somehow we missed it in the theater. I don't know what else came out.
Well, I think it was one of those that kind of didn't. They seemed to do a big push in relation to promotions. But it didn't seem to get a big push of its release, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think it came out on the same weekend as some other things that we wanted
to
watch.
It got lost in the shuffle, but it was one of those that I kept seeing promotions where they were doing promotions of like dog rescuing and fun interviews where like Mark Wahlberg and Simu Liu
and the
dog all sitting in the same interviews and all this stuff. But then it suddenly came to theater and then it was suddenly gone.
Yes, it went by too fast. We didn't catch it. So we watched it here in the casa.
Yes.
A week or so ago. And this is Arthur the King with Mark Wahlberg and this dog, Arthur. Who I don't think that's his real name. Does it say his real name? I'm sure it's
probably not his real name.
No, it's not. And it might be a girl instead of a boy. Who knows?
Today, baby Fred.
Adventure Stray Dog. What's the name of the dog? Oh, well, it doesn't say.
It doesn't matter.
Anywho. They're adventure
based
racers.
On a true story.
Yes, it is based on a true story. They're adventure race people.
Yes.
He puts together a team to do that one last race because they were so close to winning last time. And like, this is the last chance that they're going to have to win this race.
But it's also this guy's got his own issues because he was kind of disgraced because of what happened at the last race. And so it's this mixed thing of all these racers that are part of it are either moved on past their prime.
The one guy has a long-term injury. The other guy hates him
and became a social influencer.
And then the lady, they have to have a female on the team. So she's like, "You're just picking me because I'm a girl."
Well, she's also her dad was a
big deal climber, and she's a climber. So
she's only doing it to make her dad happy because she has no interest. So it's an interesting.
She has her own issue. Like everyone coming to this movie with so many issues and problems, and that's not the mentality you want to go to in a race.
No, and heading into this movie, I had a different vision of what this movie was going to be. I think, and that's my own thing. It's not the way they promoted it or anything else. I think that being the folk with the dog is the main focal point of the story, but the dog's not really in the story until the second act, like the second half of the movie. He's there in these snippets, but the primary focus of the film for most of the film is the team and then building the team, and then they go through quite a bit of their race adventures before the dog ever is there. And in most cases like that, I'd be like, what the heck, man? Where's the dog? Mm-hmm. But I think it balances the story better.
Yeah.
They give you just enough snippets with the dog that you know the dog's stray, you know the dog's been hurt, you know the dog's on his own. So they didn't turn it into like Homeward Bound where you're following this dog around, which is what I thought was going to happen. Okay. Before they met up, I thought we were going to spend a long time watching this dog on his own journey. Mm-hmm. And I think that would have, even though it's real, I think it would have watered down the story we get. It's more of a mystery of why did this dog show up?
Yeah.
And you never need the story because that's how things work when you really find a real stray dog. We have a dog that's a rescue dog. We have no idea her history and past, but we know something's happened from some of her behavior, whatever. And why did she connect with us? Why is she here? That's kind of the things you never know. And in this movie, you never know that. Where Hollywood likes to say, oh, look, she's injured. Well, here's what happened.
Yeah.
And we didn't need that.
Yeah. And it was funny, like, you can tell at some points where the dog's acting, you know, because at one point the dog, you can tell, like, she's like looking at somebody and doing this thing with the limpy thing because they're telling her to.
Yeah, yeah.
The dog's name is Ukai. The dog in the movie is named Ukai. And Ukai is a mix of Australian Shepherd Border Collie. So there you go. It's a good shaggy dog. I love the dog in this movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Cute little
dog. A lot
dog.
of personality.
Very cool. Anywho,
I think the cast all did really well, and I think them being diverse on both the racial, if you want to go that right, because you had a Hispanic person, you had an Asian person, you had a black person, you had a white person, but you also have men and you have women, and then you have age, kind of an age discrepancy, you know, and there's a lot of things for them to build on. That stuff alone can be issues, but none of that stuff was really their issues. No. Which is what I found, which I thought was really well done, because you could easily get lost in it's because I'm black, because I'm Asian, and you're too old and stuff. They touch base on it, like there's one guy that's got a knee injury, and you keep waiting for the knee injury to be a thing that ruins everything, and it never is. It causes issues. But it doesn't go in that Hollywood direction of this guy's knee injury ruins everything, or everybody easily forgives everybody. You know, that takes a lot for people to get past stuff, and sometimes they don't get past it. They just like, look, we got to work together.
Yeah.
We don't have to like each other.
Yeah. The other thing besides the dog, which is one of the main stories, the race itself is the story too, and all the things they have to overcome. And so it's one of these races where you just have to get from point A to point B. Whoever gets there wins.
And it doesn't matter
how you get there.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
You don't have to stay on a track. You don't have to stay in a certain place.
There's a trail you could follow, but sometimes the trail goes here, but you could cut through the jungle or the mountain or whatever, and they decide we're going to take every shortcut we can.
Yeah, they go through
But that's not necessarily the safest things. And then this started reminding me, I keep posting these videos of, like, let's ride our bike along the thing. And I was like, the bike is not a good idea, because we had just seen this movie where they're bungee, they're doing a zip lining.
Yeah.
Well, it's an abandoned zip line.
Yeah.
And so the equipment's not the best. And one of my friends is like, check the equipment. So they're zip lining, and at one point the zip line is not going to work very well.
But it doesn't do the stereo thing of the zip line breaks, they fall.
No, it's the person's equipment. So
it's a very cliffhanger moment.
Yeah, but they have bicycle. They're like,
well, you know what I think about
bike and zip lining.
You post all these videos and I watch stuff this, you may or may not remember it, but there's a movie with Gina Carano, In the Blood, I think it was called, where the whole premise of the movie is her and her fiance or husband are on vacation. And it's played by Cam Gigante or whatever his name is. And remember, there's zip lining, and his zip line breaks and he falls into the jungle.
Right.
And she's trying to find him, and then it becomes this revenge thing of trying to find her husband. That's what I think about. You keep posting these things, and what's going to happen is one of us can disappear. And if it's not me, if it's you, then I'll be searching for you. If it's me, you're going to be like, well, he's gone, and just go back home.
No, I would search for you.
You wouldn't search for me because you'd be too busy like, that's a big hill. No. I'm not walking past that.
Actually, I'd be more scared of the bugs.
Yeah, you'd never see me again, but she would just leave me out there.
Anyway, this is one of those feel-good, uplifting kind of movies, and then of course there's some sad parts and some happy parts, and I liked it. I was crying. I did too.
It's a really good movie. It's uplifting, but you buy into their race stuff. You buy into the dog elements. You know, again, they're not spoon feeding you why, and then when it does get into the past the race, there's still a little more history there with the dog, which starts pulling at the heartstrings a little bit. But at first I was wondering how much of this was Hollywoodized on that element, just to really make you more connect with the dog and the relationships, because you kind of figure where it's going to end. But then they start showing the photos at the end of the movie of the actual scenes that we're seeing, are those moments. I'm assuming a lot of the race part was probably the embellishment stuff of some of the stuff with the dog, even though it probably happened, but different ways they happened. But it was interesting, and I also like it didn't have the same cliche of everything goes perfect for them.
No, it does.
Things go horribly wrong a lot of times.
Very, very wrong.
It was a good movie. I think the movie deserved to be seen by more people. It's uplifting. It's a good movie. It's well done.
And I'm kind of appreciating Mark Wahlberg doing a stint of feel-good movies. I know. I'm a Mark Wahlberg back and forth lover hater.
She is a fair weather fan. When he's doing things that she likes, and when she doesn't like doing things, she's against.
You know what I do admire, no matter what, is his conviction to his beliefs.
Here we go again.
And what he cares about. Like he did that Father Stu movie, and he did this, and he does a lot of just really good, feel good, heart lifting movies. Whether or not people see him or whatever, I don't think he cares.
No, well, he has a studio now too.
He does his thing.
Funding a lot of these movies himself.
So,
excuse me.
Good for you, Marky Mark.
Yeah.
And the Funky Bunch. And don't say
there's no
wrong.
Funky Bunch.
They're around somewhere.
Who knows? Nobody knows who's in the Funky Bunch. Name one person from the Funky Bunch besides Mark Wahlberg.
No idea.
Exactly.
The Bunch.
You just know Mr. Bunch. I knew a guy you laughed, but I had a friend once named Jesse Bunch. So I bet you money he's the Bunch from Funky Bunch. I don't know whatever happened to good old Jesse Bunch.
Scott G. Hector,
don't
the booty
look,
inspector.
You just don't know who any of these people are.
DJ T and Ashy Ace.
You don't know.
But you remember that one time when an interviewer asked him about it? He's like, "It's the Funky Bunch. Get it right."
Yeah. Well, he seems like he's just turned a corner where he will talk about it. There was the longest time he almost seemed like he was embarrassed by it.
But I'm feeling good vibrations.
But I think now I've seen some other stuff where they brought it up.
Deal, man.
And I've even seen him jump up one time in some interview. It was like, and he's like, feel it, you know,
I feel the
cheered.
vibrations.
So it's just a part of his history that.
It's an important part, though. That's how a lot of us began to know who he was. So embrace it. We love it.
He's moved past that now. He doesn't need to.
Nah.
He's a perfect example of the generation gap of when you talk to people on how you know people, which I always find is an interesting story of how do you know Will Smith? How do you know Ice Cube?
True.
Those kind of things. And if you know Ice Cube because of, you know, a movie he was in, but you don't know NWA, or you know Ice Cube, the soul artist, but you don't know NWA.
Can we play Feeling Good Vibrations?
No, don't play that right now.
Okay.
Or I think Will Smith is the best one because do you know Parents Don't Just Understand? Do you know Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Parents
or do you know
don't
Independence
understand.
Day? You know, which era Will Smith, you know, that kind of says who you are and what your age group is.
Yeah.
My favorite one time was somebody told my Dr. Dre, and they were doing a reaction on a song of Dr. Dre's off the Chronic album, which, you know, is one of the all-time biggest rap albums ever.
Oops.
And they were like,
I don't know what that's about.
I didn't even know Dr. Dre rapped. It's like, I thought you just made headphones. And they were like,
what?
And then there's one song, I think it's Dre Day, I think it is.
I thought he made headphones.
Yeah, they thought he made headphones because they're Beats by Dre. And there's one song, he's like, there's a thing, it was like when your album sales weren't doing so good, who's the doctor that told you to go see? And they're like, wait, does he make other people's albums? Like, I'm like, people honestly don't know, and I've seen other people not know he had anything to do with Eminem. Why is he in Eminem's video? And I'm like,
because he's dead in Eminem's base.
But again, it's a generation thing. If all you know was Beats by Dre.
Because remember that one time we were in something, we were playing with friends, and we were doing a category, or we were doing one of those things. And I was like, he's dead in Eminem's basement. And you're like, Dr. Dre. And people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, do you not listen to music at all? Anyway.
But it's also, again,
I get it.
There's a difference, too, because so many things are watered down and sampled. It's like,
that's true.
You listen to certain
music. You don't
music.
know who originally sang it.
Yeah, you listen to certain music like.
This has happened between us. Like I'm listening like to the 60s or 70s, and you're like, is
like, that's where that came from.
I'm like, what rap song?
But the difference is, I know it was sampled.
You know it was a sample.
I just don't know the music.
You're like, oh, is this the original song? I'm like, I have no idea what.
But it's like, you know, like when the big things. I think the things that crack me up the most too, and it's going into the music still is when you get the people like, when somebody did a song with Paul McCartney. And they're like, oh my God, this guy, I don't know who this Paul McCartney guy, but he's about to be famous. And everybody's like, what? And I think the same thing happened with Post Malone and Ozzy Osbourne. When Post Malone did that song, they're like, he's about to make this guy Ozzy famous. And I'm like, I got some news for you.
Like, I think there's just a lack of looking up stuff.
Well, it's funny.
Why did you not go
in a generation where you have every piece of information at your fingertips?
Yes.
People know nothing.
And you know what? It's so interesting. We were just talking about this at work.
I don't know how we got off of Arthur the King, but too bad.
Go watch it. Anyway, it's a really good movie.
Screw Arthur and his king. Let's go.
It's great. We were talking about like we're technically Zennials. We're at the tail end of Gen Z and the beginning of millennials, where we have experienced life before and after the internet. And then all these new people, they only know life with the internet. But like you said, they're so dumb because they rely on information that can easily be changed. We had the encyclopedias. You go look that stuff up.
Like if you experienced, since we're talking about rap, when I experienced
Rhythm
the era of rap beefs, I experienced it via the songs on the cassette tapes.
You were keeping up with like who said
and
what.
So I'm listening to a song, and if they don't say their name, I'm like, who do they have an issue with?
Yeah.
Then you'd hear some other song completely random because you bought the album, and you're like, wait a minute.
He's responding.
He's talking
to
about this guy,
yeah.
and then unless it got beyond the music, you didn't know anything about what was going on until it got to that point and showed up on MTV News.
Yeah.
With Kurt Loder.
Kurt Loder.
Then you found out. But beyond that, we didn't have Instagrams and the Twitters, and you never saw it beyond that. Or unless somebody made a movie. Like, I remember movies coming out by certain people. I'm like, I didn't even know they knew each other. You know, I didn't know, as deep into the rap world as I was, for years I didn't know that MC Hammer was there with Tupac right before he died, and was, you know, I knew he had gotten with Death Row potentially to do the Funky Headhunter album, but I didn't know they were that close, you know, so it wasn't until a lot of stuff. So it's crazy interesting. Anyway, Marky Mark is not in the Funky Bunch anymore. None of this conversation has anything to do with Arthur the King.
No, but it's just live.
But Arthur the King will be available on Blu-ray and DVD this week, so you should check it out. It's a great movie.
It is really, really good.
We digress, and we'll move on to something else.
So excited to talk
Speaking of nostalgia,
I'm going to play the song.
And another perfect example of how you would learn to figure things out and discover new things.
Play the song. Tell me about it.
The next thing is a documentary called Butterfly in the Sky.
I can go twice as
high. For those of you that sadly
take a look. It's in a book. A Reading Rainbow.
It's a documentary about the television show Reading Rainbow.
Loved.
Starring Geordie LaForge. For those of you who don't know who that is. LeVar Burton.
LeVar Burton.
Butterfly in the Sky was the theme song to the show. It was all about reading. It's very much like Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers era television. But it was a whole different animal at the time.
It was amazing. So this was the first time that anyone thought of, hey, let's talk about books on TV. And when you watch the documentary, they tell you in the eyes just of television, but also of academia, books are on one side, TV's over here. And teachers were saying TV is what's messing up kids from reading books. So they're like, how do we bring the two things together? And that's how we ended up with Reading Rainbow. It's an amazing show. And I was surprised to realize that it was on for over 20 years, so like 26 years or something. And I was like, what? It was? What happened? I guess I didn't watch it that long. I only watched it every once in a while to catch it.
Oh, no, I watched it every single day when I'd come home. And now it wasn't a case I'm going to go watch Reading Rainbow. Yeah, but I spent a lot of time on PBS. I would watch Sesame Streets and I think the Paddington show showed up on there sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
I had a lot of different random stuff. People, Electric Company, I was obsessed with because Spider-Man was on it, and I would watch Electric Company just waiting for Spider-Man to show up.
Is that one where it had the weird statue of the clay mask? Remember?
No, that was Giggle Snort Hotel.
Oh, okay.
You know about the mound that's face would change when he mumbled?
Yes.
Yeah, that was Giggle Snort Hotel. Okay. I think that was on PBS though too.
Yeah, I watched.
So I watched that. I watched.
And is
Captain
that the
Kangaroo,
one with
Mr. Peppermint.
With Gary Gnu?
No news is good news.
No,
with Gary Gnu.
Yeah, with Gary Gnu.
Yeah, no news is good news with
He
Gary
was a
Gnu.
Gnu. I don't know.
No, that was if it wasn't the Muppet part of the Muppets, it was on the Great Space Coaster.
Great Space Coaster.
Which I watched that too. Get on board. And there was Romper Room.
Gary Gnu.
There was all these shows that we watched. So anyway,
Gary Gnu. He was a Gnu. He was a green Muppet thing.
It was just a news broadcast for that thing.
It's Great Space Coaster.
It was
I watched that.
I know these things.
But see, I'm like, I watched these shows. I just didn't correlate like what it was because I didn't understand.
Well, I didn't watch it from a standpoint of, this new show. I would like turn it on and these shows were there.
I just know the news.
Reading Rainbow was basically. They brought in the star of Roots, LeVar Burton at the time.
He was such a big star after that movie.
We didn't know the Roots at our age.
No, I watched it later. I remember my parents watching it when it came on TV or whatever.
I
wasn't allowed to watch it.
Not the band The Roots.
Oh my gosh,
it's a mini-series about slavery.
Yes, please watch
From the point of view of the slave, which was a major deal at the time.
And they redid it in recent times, in the last few years
back,
but
which was okay.
Watch the original too.
But for anybody that's ever in a song or parody ever heard of Kunta Kinte, that was LeVar Burton's character. That was before Star Trek, before Reading Rainbow, everything. Basically, in the show reminds me of things like I almost felt like it set the tone for shows that exist now, like Ramsey Uncharted or these kind of things where the show had a major point, but then they would travel as part of it.
Yeah.
So in this one, they would pick a book, they would talk about the book, but then they would go to the locations that this book may be talking about, whether it was Africa or New York or whatever it is, and kind of try to get you to connect and be interested in the history of the book, where it came from, the story, and then maybe you'll go read that book, and then maybe you'll learn more about these things.
I thought it was awesome. And first of all, I was crying in this documentary because I'm like, as I said, but the challenge they faced of just people are like, you're going to make a show about books? Like, what does that even mean? And people are going to read books, and kids are going to talk about books. What do they know? And you're going to put a black man as the host?
Right.
Like, that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't it be a woman? Because typically teachers are women and librarians are women. And they're like,
my favorite thing is always, and I'm glad the lady said it in this one moment, is that, there's always been this correlation of how stupid children are and what they're going to connect with on TV and stuff like this, because we connect those bad apples with the bad reactions to stuff, and then you assume that if you hear a bad song or if you see something bad on TV, you automatically become bad, which is bullshit. Right, excuse my language. But there's a moment where there's this lady, I believe she was a librarian or just a teacher, but she was brought in as like a consultant on the show.
Yes.
And in one of the things they were showing early on to these kids, they asked them, "Are you afraid you're going to turn into a dinosaur?" or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they looked at me like, "No, it's a story." And that because they make her ask that because that was a fear. They afraid that kids were going to be terrified if this story said a person turned into a unicorn. Then the kid reading that book was going to be afraid if they would turn into a unicorn.
Yeah. And
the kids were like, "No, basically, we're not stupid."
Yeah, they're not dumb. They understand.
They do latch on to more than they need to latch on to, and that's another problem. But that's a whole other discussion.
The other thing that I thought was interesting was just seeing the kids that were on the show then, and they interview them now as adults, and how it has affected some of their lives. And that one, I need to find the man that was in it. He was this cutest little kid, and he grows up to be essentially
the black guy?
Yes, the black guy with the beautiful dreads. He ends up being like kind of the poet laureate of children's literature at this moment. I mean, he is in charge of whatever in the United States, and I'm like, dang, this was a big deal. And a lot of these kids are like, yeah, I remember being on the show and I got to do this. And they were just winging it. They let the kids say whatever they wanted about the books because they wanted honest reviews.
Well, one of the things that I had one question answered that I'd always wondered about.
Okay.
In the history of this show. And it's not even an important question, but it always made me wonder two levels. Excuse me.
Goodness
As
gracious.
We know, he went from Reading Rainbow, and he did some other shows and movies and I think some random parts. But then he went to becoming this massive star in Star Trek.
Right.
And so I was under the assumption for years, because by the time the Star Trek came along, I was kind of done with Reading Rainbow. I wasn't really watching that anymore. I wasn't that age group anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I assumed Reading Rainbow was over. I assumed he went. And then I remember seeing it was still on and he was still doing it. And I'm like, why would you still do that? Or the other side is, how can you still do that? Because that's a major network show, and to make that kind of show, it's got to be long hours. And how can you travel and do this other show and still make this show work? And so I was so glad to see that in the movie they touched base on that exact dilemma of they were replacing him, and he was like, I don't want to be replaced. This is what I want to do, and it was important to him. And even to this day, he still does things in relation to Reading Rainbow
because he still reads books. I mean, on his podcast, he reads books, and I'm like, that is awesome. I want to hear LeVar Burton read me a book. Heck yeah, I do.
So it was an intriguing story of it's kind of a dual layer of history in television, educational television, the story of LeVar Burton's career, and just this Hollywood story. It's kind of a lot of things that are happening in this one story. It's not just Reading Rainbow.
Yeah. And the thing too, when you go behind the scenes, And I'm remembering it was early. When was it that Mr. Rogers had to go before Congress to fight for public television?
I don't know, but I think it was the same thing.
And then again, we see in our more recent times, LeVar Burton went before Congress to fight for public television. He's like, hello, you know.
Which I also thought there's a moment where you actually get to see them two together.
Oh, that was so
And I think that was probably on Mr. Rogers' episode.
He went to go see Mr. Rogers.
And they're talking about, he's telling him how important he is. And I can't imagine that influence of somebody who has taken on a program like that, who's already successful. You're breaking down a wall. It's not only it's another successful children's show, you're bringing literature to the TV that hasn't been done before. You're an African American that's becoming a host that given a voice and a visual look that other people can relate to, and then have you also be recognized and applauded from the icon that kind of embodied that whole thing and had essentially, it's not touched in this, but essentially fought for this exact thing to be a thing.
Yes.
You know, Mr. Rogers' focus was feelings and
they said like emotional. What did they say? It was very interesting.
Yeah, because they broke it down how Mr. Rogers was this version, Sesame Street was this thing.
Yeah, they're focusing on imagination, creativity. Mr. Rogers is focusing on your emotional growth and well-being.
Sesame Street focused on imagination, but education.
And education. Mr. Rogers is like emotional growth, and here we have literature, like reading.
So
but
for him, but he also, we all know Mr. Rogers fought for equal rights, you know, even against racism and handicaps and everything you could think of under the sun. So to have that same man tell you you're doing a wonderful thing, and I think you're great. I mean, like, I don't know how you could sit in front. I don't know if I could sit in front of Mr. Rogers.
I would cry.
Without just crying, looking at him. It was like.
Remember when we went to the documentary about Mr. Rogers?
Oh, and had the 1 minute silence.
It was everybody in the theater's like crying.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it,
oh my gosh, go see that.
It's called A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. It's a documentary.
So good.
There's a moment in the movie where it's actually a film thing that was way back. It wasn't current for that.
Yeah,
it was footage.
Used footage from
and he said, let's everybody just sit in silence for 1 minute.
Yes.
And so the movie sits in silence for 1 minute.
And think about someone that's very special to you in your life. I'm going to cry.
You cried already again.
This is so sweet.
And dude, you could hear grown men. You could hear people in the whole theater were crying. And you're like, it's both touching and uncomfortable.
Oh, it was sweet.
I haven't been that uncomfortable in a theater in a long time. And I've been in a fight during a movie.
Oh, my gosh.
So,
but it was interesting, too, because if you go and just research and read, like LeVar Burton, I had no idea, like, he wanted to become a priest. And so knowing that Mr. Rogers was actually a Presbyterian minister, it's like he got it, and he understood the love and devotion that he had for children and making sure that they grew up with all of these things. And it was
my
just
favorite
so
part of our watching this
so good.
Watching this together was you going, when he goes, I originally want to be a priest. He goes, what happened? Why didn't you decide to be a priest? But she's now obsessed. She didn't even care about reading Rainbow Mom.
I did care.
She's all obsessed about why he didn't become a priest. What's going on? I got to look this up. And I'm like, dear, we're talking about reading Rainbow.
It fascinates me because that is such a very distinct line of work. Like, my dad thought he wanted to be a priest too when he was younger. And the guy was like, nah.
Then she goes, is he still Catholic? Is he not?
Yeah, no, he's super cool. Okay, the guy I wanted to mention from the movie is called Jason Reynolds. Super cool. He's won like every poetry literature award you can win, and he was the Library of Congress National Ambassador for Young People's Literature. And he is so cool because it's interesting. His fascination with poetry began with rap music, because if you don't know, it's rhythm and poetry is what rap is.
That's what it is.
And
if you listen, unlike the rap today, if you listen to old rap, a lot of it told stories, and whether it's I know some of it had dirty language and things like this, but a lot of times it was telling the story and the plights of people in the ghetto and trying to come up whatever their lives were. And you may not have lived in that thing, but if you listen, you can learn about it.
It says he was inspired by Queen Latifah's third album, Black Rain, to start writing poetry. That's where it started. Then he got into Tupac.
Tupac is all about
very literary. And then just all of these things and this personal life.
Tupac's whole story, even though he had those stories, most everything he had some sort of a message.
Is so that one song you made me listen to about the girl, and I was just like,
about Brenda had the baby?
Poor
about that one?
So sad.
Because Brenda has a baby, there's Dear Mama, there's the Keep Your Head Up, which is all about
and even like Eminem, like sometimes if you actually just read and listen to the Eminem lyrics, like it makes you want to cry.
Well, it's like you listen to like Keep Your Head Up, which is the story of him uplifting messages to women and we know you're being mistreated and this. And then, but the problem was a lot of people didn't take some of what he said serious, because then in the next song he may be doing the party stereotypical rap song about the hoes and the bitches, and so it was hard to differentiate if you didn't understand the personas of what you're listening to. If you looked at Eminem, there's two people. There's Eminem and there's Slim Shady.
Correct.
Slim Shady said the things that nobody's supposed to be saying.
Correct.
Eminem told the truth.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, the rumor is there's a new album coming out called The Death of Slim Shady, where he's supposedly killing off this Slim Shady persona once and for all. And so, anyway,
Anyway, okay. So that is Butterfly in the Sky.
It is available now on Netflix. You don't ever have to have ever seen Reading Rainbow.
No.
It is still compelling. It's interesting. It's uplifting.
So good.
And it's just, it'll make you want to go look for, if nothing else, you will sing that stupid song for the rest of your life.
Butterfly in the Sky.
I don't know anybody in our generation that does not know that song, at least the first 3 lines.
Take a look. It's in our book. Reading Rainbow.
And that's usually where most people stop, except for they'll go,
I can do anything.
And then you're like, you know, so it's just one of those songs, and it was a great documentary.
It was really good. Okay, I am so curious about this next movie. Tell me about this.
All right, so I did 2 documentaries this time. So this is one that is another questions answered of my life.
Oh.
This seems like a silly thing.
Okay.
Right? It's a documentary called Enter the Clones of Bruce.
Okay.
Now, as somebody who, while you're in martial arts, you weren't heavily into martial art movies growing up. Yeah. Where I was Kung Fu theater every Sunday. I was growing up on all the chopsaki flicks, as they used to call them, Kung Fu movies left and right. So essentially what happened, in 1974, when Bruce Lee died, Bruce Lee was like a mega star, right? He didn't make that many movies. Well, people may not know that. He did like Fist of Fury, Chinese Connection, or whatever. He was in the middle of shooting Game of Death, and he died. Right. So essentially, Game of Death didn't get finished until much later, and it was shot with doubles and whatever. Even to the point where there's a moment where the actor, and they talk about it in this, where the actor sits in front of the mirror, and finally, because they shot it with a lot of shadows and angles, so you don't see it, and you're finally gonna have to see Bruce Lee in a mirror. They literally put a cardboard picture of Bruce Lee's face, and so he's sitting there. It's kind of like superimposed, but he's like this, just like not moving. You know what? You can tell it's a photo, just so they can have a shot of Bruce Lee in this moment, right? It's a horribly, horribly bad film. The fights are great in it because the fights are actually Bruce Lee. But anyway, what happened during this time was something that I don't know, to my knowledge, that's ever happened before or since. And basically, the loss of Bruce Lee made all the studios say, we have to find a replacement. And thus we got Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee, Dragon Lee. We had all these different people that were Bruce Lee. It was actually Bruce
exploitation.
Yes, Bruce exploitation era of Kung Fu movies.
Oh my, let me go look this up.
To the point where even the movies were called things about Bruce Lee, like The Return of Bruce Lee, and where Bruce Lee as Bruce Lee. And a lot of these guys were real martial artists. They were decent, but they were being hired because they looked similar to Bruce Lee. Some of them looked nothing like Bruce Lee, but they could do the persona. They were all doing his normal thing with his nose and his poses, and they even had actors that were in some of the Bruce Lee movies show back up.
I'm posting a link to Bruceploitation.
Bolo of them all probably showed up in the most of them, because he's one of the only characters from Enter the Dragon that didn't die, so he could keep returning as different, the same character or variations. So this documentary dives into the history of all this film story of these people. Like, they even use stock footage in some films of the actual funeral of Bruce Lee and showing his body.
Oh my goodness.
In the casket at the funeral, because it was broadcast on the news. In the movie, it's like, okay, Bruce Lee has died. And all of a sudden this mystery guy shows back, is it Bruce? And so in the movie you see the funeral. And so they did a lot of, there's even one guy that shows a poster. I don't remember the name of the movie now. I was trying to remember it so I can say it. But you see the whole poster. It's kind of similar to this drawing you see now on the screen, where it's, the old Kung Fu style paintings of posters. And down at the bottom is a little square. And it's actually a picture of Bruce Lee's face of his dead body on the poster.
Oh my God.
And we don't know it's from the casket, if it's from the morgue, but it's like, it's a real picture of Bruce Lee. But this whole thing, all the guys that played these characters are in this movie.
Really?
The real people.
They got all of them.
They got pretty much all of them. They're still alive. They all interviewed about how they got into it, what they did, and their careers. And then Sammo Hung is here. So Sammo Hung's connected because he did a movie called Enter the Fat Dragon. Right. And it was a parody-esque of Bruce Lee. But the reason he was successful is because he didn't try to mimic Bruce Lee. He did the best Bruce Lee impression of any of the people that ever did it, but looked nothing like Bruce Lee.
No, not at all.
And the fun fact is he's the only one of these people that had a direct connection with Bruce Lee because he's in Enter the Dragon. And he did a lot of the stunt work. And so that was the infusion of bringing between him and Jackie Chan, because Jackie Chan is the one that kind of broke the mold for this, because he brought the humor into kung fu movies. And people are like, you can't be funny in a kung fu movie. Jackie Chan changed all that. They kind of wanted him to be another Bruce Lee clone. But again, he looked nothing like Bruce Lee. And he's like, let me do my thing. I promise you. It was one of the producers or somebody he talked to. He said, Jackie Chan said, I promise you, I'm going to be a star.
Wow. And
of course, Jackie Chan's one of the biggest stars of all time.
Yeah.
But it's interesting hearing all their talks and how the way they worked and what their thought process is like one guy's like, if it hadn't been for me being a Bruce Lee clone, my life would have taken a very different turn. Yeah. Somebody else was talking about one guy who was like saying, this guy was a great actor. He was a great martial artist. He goes, he was never given the chance to do anything other than being a Bruce Lee clone. He goes, and I think this guy would have had an amazing career had he not got pigeonholed into this. So it was just interesting because throughout my love
you've seen all of, well, pretty
almost
much
every
all
movie they
them,
talk about
right?
in this thing, I had seen at some point, at least clips. The whole movie's back on Kung Fu Theater. I didn't know what some of the names were. Are you crying again?
No, I'm laughing.
I'm watching them and I'm like, oh, I remember, I love that movie. That movie's so bad, blah, blah, blah. But the whole time, my entire life, I always wondered, how did they get away with that? What was the thought behind it? Not knowing that how many of these different movies, these same guys did so many movies. Like this one guy had done like 30-something different movies, all based on his name being this certain version of Lee or Le. And seeing the other guys they also talk about how they got deep into it, how it affected their families because they got so obsessed with their careers. And this one guy talking about how he started getting older. I think it was the original Bruce Lee, which is probably the most popular. He was the first, I believe. And how he still teaches Kung Fu for free, but he can't really do as much anymore. And his wife died and he left Hollywood, the China film industry, cut off from his kids because he was just so depressed. But he found himself again. He actually became, because of it, he had a back injury. He became like an orthopedic massage specialist. Refound himself, reignited everything, and then it shows clips of him now still doing kung fu with people.
That's nice. That's
so
very cool.
It was not only cool to just finally learn this mysterious history of stuff that I'm sure I could have learned it, but I never did.
Yeah.
But also get to see these guys now and hear them tell their actual stories from the people. I'd never once seen an interview with a single one of these guys. I'd just seen them in the movies, right? Yeah. And one of the guys that's talking to them too is also a martial arts guy who was in a bunch of movies in the 80s as a kid that I was a fan of.
Oh,
and I hadn't seen him in forever.
That's cool.
But apparently he's some sort of a martial arts film historian too. Because he's showing all these posters and talking about the movies. When he shows up, he's got like a man bun and a beard. And I'm like, that guy looks familiar. And then I realized, I was like, holy kid, I remember that kid. He was like 14 fighting in these movies. And I love that kid because I'm like, I can be that kid, you know.
That's funny.
So anyway, it's a great movie. It's Enter the Clones of Bruce. Look, I have it right here. It's pretty standard documentary fare, but it's one of those that I think it's iconic in its history. It also tells the history of what is her name? Is it on here? Hold on. Angela Mao, who was a female martial art superstar on her own, but she was originally known for starring in Enter the Dragon, I think it was, or it might have been anyway, one of the Bruce Lee movies. And she so much spun off and did her own things, and then she just disappeared.
Oh, now we find out.
And then she's in us too. She's here interviewing, and she talks about it. She just went off and started doing her own thing, and it's like she just was done with the stuff, you know. So it's interesting. So it's like if you whether you like martial arts or not, it's really going to connect more to martial arts people. But it's another one of those weird film history things that I think is compelling, and I think it's one of those like you'd be watching and be like, what? Why would they, how could they do that, you know?
Yeah,
but
different time, different country too.
And it's available now on Blu-ray and digital. So if you like martial arts, you want kind of weird stuff.
See, now though, they could digitally create somebody.
Yeah.
Which is even sadder, I think.
Well, and then it all this further digs into, there's a lot of the conspiracies of how Bruce Lee died. We all know he died of like an aneurysm, I think, an embolism or something like that. But there's where they think the mob killed him. There's all this stuff because he died so young. Then there's the Bruce Lee curse, or Lee family curse, which his son Brandon was killed on set as well, and how The Crow wasn't going to get finished, and Game of Death wasn't going to finish, but they both got finished, and the whole thing.
That's when you watch the movie Dragon with
Bruce Lee story. Scott Lee, who is not related to any of them.
At all.
Which, again, that story tweaks too many things because they
mixed a bunch of things together.
Well, they mix in the whole thing about him getting hurt with his back in a fight, when in reality he got hit by a car on a motorcycle. And if you watch the original trailer, it shows the motorcycle accident in the trailer, but it's not in the movie. But the fight where he gets kicked in the back is way more exciting than probably getting run over by a car. So, anyway,
all right.
Into the Cons of Bruce. It was a fantastic documentary that I loved. And you will love it too, so you should check it out.
All right, next.
Did you really use that picture?
We're going to talk about the Normal movie.
We're not watching the
Okay,
Normal
just
movie.
kidding. It's the Garfield movie. And we went to go see Garfield. We were able to meet Garfield and pet some cats. We got this cool Garfield plushie.
It was a guy in a suit, right?
No, it was Garfield was there, and he came and hugged you. And Garfield's like, I hate Mondays. Then I got a fluffy Garfield pen. We got Garfield stickers. We got to pet cats.
All right. So before we talk about the movie itself,
ever.
I need to make it well known for anybody that's watching this that doesn't already know this.
He loves Normal.
I am a massive Garfield fan.
Yeah.
I grew up on Garfield like a lot of people. I love Garfield. I have 2 trade paperbacks. I just finished reading of Garfield's comics. My entire cartoonist style that I draw is based on Jim Davis mostly.
Yes.
My go-to sketch when I'm bored and doodling is Garfield. Yeah. So I was super excited for this movie.
Put this in front.
You make it button, but it's fine.
There.
Let's make him sit down instead of standing. I was super excited for the Garfield movie. I loved Garfield and Friends back in the day, even though I know it's supposed to be a U.S. Acres show, but they wouldn't do it without Garfield. You may not know that. But I like U.S. Acres, which Jim Davis did too, which was the farm
people. Yeah.
He just wanted to do a U.S. Acres cartoon. They said nope, not without Garfield.
Yeah.
So that's why they split it into 2 shows. Anyway, I've been on the fence on this movie mostly because, 2 things. One, as much as I like Chris Pratt, I wasn't sure how well his voice was going to work for my mental picture of Garfield. I figure it's got to be somebody sarcastic, somebody that's kind of bored sounding, some annoyed. So, like, Bill Murray did a great Garfield voice, as bad as those movies was. Chris Pratt can be sarcastic, but I think he's got too much energy. So that was my fear. My biggest fear, though, was can Garfield work as a movie as opposed to short form? Because a lot of his stories were always like 4 panels, or even the comics. It's like you get 1 issue of the comic, it's 3 stories in the comic, or can the ongoing story of Garfield work, or will it get mundane and start losing the spirit of the character and blah blah blah.
Correct.
Now, before I tell you my opinion, we're going to go to you.
Okay.
What did you think of the Garfield movie?
I enjoyed the movie. I think there were moments that were a little too long in certain areas, and we didn't get to explore other things as much. It deviates in my mind of what Garfield is and his relationship with John and Odie. It deviates from that, and that's not necessarily what I think I was expecting. So it's completely not the Garfield we know, I think. So that was a little bit like, huh. But once I kind of let that go, I'm like, okay, Garfield's on a whole different adventure. I don't know. I
know you were cracking up.
I was cracking up. They had me. But it was like, this isn't about John and Odie. What are we doing? So I had to let it go and just go with the story. I was cracking up. I liked it. I thought it was funny. We learned a lot more about Garfield. I don't know. But there's no funny Normal jokes. There's no funny Odie.
Well, we could do without Normal.
I know, but there's a couple of funny Odie jokes. I like Odie's fuzzy ears, but it was okay. Overall, it was okay. I liked the animation. I liked the look of it. I don't think you did as much as I did. I liked that they look fuzzy and furry, but it's completely different than what I thought I was getting.
Yeah.
But I did like it.
All right.
Now, your problems. This one. Because you love Garfield. So what were you expecting?
I rarely go into anything, Star Wars or anything else, with high expectations, because I go in understanding they're not going to meet every expectations. They're not going, but I also know with Paws Inc. and the history of this stuff and how anal they are about making sure everything is a very specific way, but also forgetting that Paws Inc. was sold to Paramount or whoever owns it now. I guess it's Sony or whoever put this movie out. I have a lot of issues with this movie as a Garfield fan.
Yes.
I will say this. As a straight animated feature that's fun for the kids, that is funny, it's entertaining, all that kind of stuff exists. I would watch the movie again and I would probably be fine with it because I'm able to separate things and say just the fact that I got a big screen Garfield movie that wasn't that other live action one made me happy. Even the old live action movies made me happy at the time because Garfield was getting some push. The movies weren't good, but I at least got to say Garfield is up there. He's being put out in the world.
Yeah. And
not lost just in the comic books for a small group of people. That being said, I had a lot of issues with this movie from a Garfield standpoint.
Let's start.
Some of them are my own issues. They're not actual Garfield, Jim Davis issues. Like I've always, and part of that's probably because the way they did the animated show, the original show, because I know if you watch some of the newer animated shows, even the live action movies, Garfield's mouth moves, opens up and down. If you watch, like if you're reading the comics, you never see an open mouth Garfield outside of a yawn or something like that. When you watch the original cartoon, Garfield and Friends, his mouth never opens the same way. He talks almost like he's talking mentally.
Yeah, it's always bubbles.
I know that's not logistic for a cartoon sometimes, especially nowadays, but it bothered me. Yeah. Seeing Garfield's mouth moving all the time really annoyed me.
Yeah.
That's a me issue. That's not a problem with this. I didn't mind the fuzziness as you thought. I didn't mind their designs.
See, I didn't know if you were
I thought Garfield should have been a little fatter. But
a little bit.
I know we were also trying to play with the young Garfield and getting into this one. And so I think that I felt like, again, my own speculation, that they tried to normalize Garfield instead of really focus on his obesity and his kind of asshole behavior mentality. I didn't feel like this was Garfield. I felt like this was just an orange cat in this adventure. Had this been called Bill's Adventure with His Pet Friend Dog or something stupid, I would have been fine with this movie. But I felt like they completely, once you get past the little kid version of Garfield and his lasagna moments and eating and a little bit of the montage.
We need a montage.
When they get into the adventure, he never mentions food again.
Well, he wasn't jerky enough.
Like, he wasn't a jerk. Him and Odie have moments where they connect in the stories, but it's usually after something happens, and then Garfield's still annoyed with Odie. They seem like they were too close of friends.
Yeah, they're two good friends.
Like, we know they're really good friends in the comic, but it's a love-hate relationship. This felt like he's moderately annoyed with Odie, but he liked him. It was fine. He rarely mentioned food once they get on the road. Like, in my vision,
like his stomach should have been rumbling.
Yeah, it should have been an ongoing thing. As I'm hungry again, I'm hungry again, I'm hungry again. I hate this. It's annoying. Why are we doing? That's Garfield's persona, and it wasn't there in my opinion, or it wasn't there enough that made me catch it. I like there's a whole side story. The main part of the story goes on to like this farm thing, and I don't know if it was on purpose or not. I did like that element that felt like they're kind of paying homage or nod to the U.S. Acres, even though none of the U.S. Acres characters are there. And I don't know if that's because they don't know the rights to it, so they had to do something else.
Yeah,
I did like that element of it. Too. I didn't like that John was not with him. I like what they were doing with the story where John's panicking. That's some of the funniest stuff in the movie. Yeah. Where he's trying to find Garfield and freaking out. But the entire thing is, even when they take John away, John's always just a major part. John felt like a secondary character in this movie that wasn't important. And he's probably the most important person because he's always the foil to whatever Garfield's going to do. I also didn't think Odie looked like Odie. Like, Garfield doesn't look like the standard Garfield I like, but I also like the really old school big fat Garfield.
Super fat.
But Odie's neck's not long enough. They made him look too
normal,
proportioned, even though they gave him a long neck. And part of Odie's ridiculous nature is how big and stupid he looks. So I don't know. Again, a lot of those problems sound stupid. But when you have spent 50 years enjoying this thing the way I enjoy it, and how much it's played into my career as an artist and my own thing that I draw and I love. And it's as a grown man to say it seems silly. It just it was disappointing, and I loved it at the same time.
Yeah.
Again,
that's what I'm saying. It just deviated from the John and Odie story, which is what I thought we were getting. But I know what they're doing, and I get it. But I agree. But I mean, I had to roll with it, right?
Yeah, and I think I might be able to roll with it a little bit better. It hasn't gotten good reviews.
And I think
if I watch it at home, and I will, I probably would enjoy it a little bit more because I can say, okay, I already know what crap they're going to do and what they're going to mess up.
And we watch it with the grandkids.
Yeah, I can just enjoy it.
We've started to introduce her to who Garfield
is. This is the best thing about this movie coming out is when we got this and we got one for her, I got to introduce her to Garfield. At the time, I couldn't find Garfield and Friends on TV anywhere, she found it. But I found
the new Garfield
new Garfield that's a CGI show I don't really like, but she liked it, so it made her start watching Garfield. So for me to get to share Garfield, this movie is already doing exactly what I hope it does.
Yes,
is it's putting more Garfield in the world.
And that's why I'm thinking we weren't the primary audience for that.
No,
but at least they did give us some things. Like they did a whole I Hate Mondays poster, bloop, 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 all the funnies. That's all the stuff.
Yeah, some of that I thought was clever when they were doing that, and then they even poked fun at the Garfield things that were sticking on the window that used to always be a deal. There were very clever moments. There's some funny moments.
Stuff in there for us.
I did love the little snippet of how they find Garfield the first time.
Yes, that was cute.
I think too, diving so much into his past kind of messes it up. I think sometimes giving people a backstory makes them not the character you know. Like learning who his dad was and why he found John. Why couldn't John just find a cat? You know, or why not just start off in John Odie gets a cat from the pound, or he has this cat, and we don't. I think knowing all this stuff, then it feels like you're trying to give Garfield depth he doesn't need. You know, but it's the catalyst of the story they're trying to tell, and like I said, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it either. But again, that's not because it's a bad movie in my opinion. It's because it's not a Garfield movie in my opinion. And my love of Garfield will always trump them doing it wrong. And I think it irritates me more when I know people behind it. There's so much history to feed from and you still don't get it. That annoys me. I mean, somebody in the making of it or decision making said we can't do that. And I'm like, when you can nail a character, it's going to work. But when you misstep that character, especially one that's iconic as Garfield, it's going to be a problem.
I mean, it's still doing okay.
Yeah, it didn't do well this weekend.
It's number 2.
Well, the box office this weekend sucked big time.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, nobody made that much money. It's really concerning.
Uh-oh. Where's everybody at? Maybe they'll go tomorrow. Well,
they can, but I don't think cinema's dead. I think we're just I think COVID really slapped people in the head and made them go, I'd rather stream. And so like I talked to another one of the film reviewers the other day I'm friends with, and he went to Furiosa. He said, that's the first movie I've been to in a while. He goes, I'd rather just watch them at home. And I'm kind of in that point too. I'm tired of going to the theater, but I still love the experience of seeing certain movies on the big screen.
Biggest screen possible.
And we have a big screen here, but I want to see it bigger, you know.
Yeah.
But I think people are not. Plus, the cost to go, how much it costs to pay for the movies, how much it costs to eat, how much the gas, and taking all these people. And before the tentpole movie mentality is not there, where people want to line up and buy things. I think Deadpool and Wolverine will probably be the first one. It's another massive one, like Top Gun was, and what was the other one that was earlier this year? It was massive. Maybe Kung Fu Panda 4 did really well. Yeah. It was another animated movie. Anyway. Doesn't matter. Anyway, Garfield movie. Do you have anything more to say? I'm sorry. I bogarted this entire one. I'm sorry.
But that you love Garfield, like legitimately love Garfield. I liked it. I thought it was cute. I liked it. It was fun. I was cracking up. I was catching all the jokes. I was awake.
I was annoyed enough where I was even falling asleep sometimes.
Yeah, I was awake and paying attention, but it does deviate from what I remember of Garfield. So I just had to kind of be like, okay.
Can I correct you on something? What? It didn't deviate from what you know of Garfield. It deviated from what is Garfield.
Okay, it deviated from Garfield, the John and Odie Garfield story. It's a whole different thing. But
I have a request, Garfield people, if you're watching this, and God,
Jim Davis.
Sadly, the movie I don't think did really well, but hopefully we might get another Garfield movie at some point. If we do, Just do an adventure at his house
That's all you need.
with John, and just a day in the life of Garfield. And it can be, there's like, my buddy David is a cartoonist, and he drew for the Garfield comics, and he did like a 2 or 3 story arc about a lasagna monster that comes to life, and Garfield's having to deal with it by eating the lasagnas and trying to stop him. I mean, it was hilarious. It's over the top, it's ridiculous, but it lends itself perfectly to this kind of format. And then you can finish that part, and then he's getting over that part. Now he's got to deal with Odie wanting to be thrown the stick, and you don't need a long-term story. You know, you can take a lot of these small stories and make one film out of it, and make the whole movie. And at the end of it, you find out this entire movie was Monday, and that be the whole "I hate Mondays." Now you know why I hate Mondays mentality. I just wrote a new Garfield movie.
There you go.
Come on, people.
Oh wow.
Anyway, go see Garfield the movie. If you have kids, it is worth checking out.
They're gonna like it. They will like it.
It is a fun movie for kids.
All right, next. Left Turn.
Is this the last one?
Yes.
All right, so the last one we're going to talk about is
Furiosa.
Oh dear God, is the latest chapter in the Mad Max Saga.
We don't need another hero.
Which is also a prequel to Fury Road.
I didn't put all those.
The last Mad Max movie. It's okay. And sadly, this movie didn't do very well either.
Dang it!
And it's bothering me because they're supposed to be hopefully making Mad Max.
The one with that other guy.
With Tom Hardy. So I hope they still make it. But this one is a prequel to Fury Road about Charlize Theron's character, Furiosa. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, for some weird, stupid reason, this is the 5th film in the franchise. You apparently didn't see most of the movies previously, which we thought you had. I'm pretty sure you had, but you don't remember them, so it doesn't matter.
I remember seeing Charlize, and I remember seeing Thunderdome. That's
because you talked about Thunderdome all the time. But so we rewatched all of them. We watched Mad Max, Road Warrior, Thunderdome, and then Fury Road leading up to this.
We watched all of them.
So before we dive into them, which of the original 4 films, I don't even know the answer to this, is your favorite of the group?
I'm actually not going to say Thunderdome.
Oh, that's surprising.
I really liked the first one. Surprising.
That's the least favorite of everybody.
I'd never seen it. No, but you know why? Because I feel like it lays for all of us the foundation of the transition of how we went from humanity to crazy town. Like, obviously, there was some sort of a war and bombs or something and a shortage of supplies and things, and so people are now on the road, the Fury Road, fighting for survival. So I actually dug it, and I think we get into the mindset of Max later on throughout the other films, and even into the Tom Hardy, where they have flashbacks of all the stuff that's happened because he's lost his family, he's lost people he's trying to save. So I think we get a real insight into who Max is, which becomes to me the center of the whole universe of everything. Yeah. So I did like it. I'd never seen it before.
Who knew? Mad Max, the original one, it's a cult classic, but it is the least favorite of most people in the franchise. And then
after that, I'd pick Charlize.
You pick who?
Charlize movie.
Oh, Fury Road?
Yeah,
Fury Road is a masterpiece, I think. Road Warrior will always be my favorite. You can't top Road Warrior. But again, there's nostalgia because I remember seeing a double feature of the Road Warrior and Death Race 2000 at the Apollo Drive-In.
That's a lot of action, dude. For
a child, it was a highly inappropriate film festival thing to be at.
Isn't there nudity in that other one?
Huh?
Isn't there nudity?
There's nudity in both of them.
Oh.
Death Race 2000.
Oh, yeah, they with that one lady.
Is also David Carradine and Sylvester Stallone, and people rolling over old people in wheelchairs. And
that's fun where they get points
for
yes, I love that movie.
I love Death Race 2000. And then we remade it with Jason Statham. But anyway, I love the Road Warrior, but I love this entire franchise, and I always found it interesting. This entire franchise is probably the most uneven franchise of films that still somehow weirdly connect, but you don't always know where at they're connected. You don't always know why it connects. I think from Mad Max to Road Warrior, there's a big disconnect other than this is why he's now moved off and left into the road, and then something happens in between that, things get worse.
Yeah.
You know, Road Warrior and Thunderdome being my least favorite, they at least have a direct connection because you've got the copter pilot guy.
He's
but
funny.
that's about it.
He's walking, he's like, you.
Yeah, that's about.
He's like me. He's like, you can fly. Let's go.
That's about it. That's the only real connection they've made for those movies. But I think if I'm not mistaken, the Thunderdome movie was not a Mad Max movie, and they got him to direct it, and he turned it into a Mad Max movie. It's essentially Lord of the Flies and Mad Max merged together.
And they threw Tina Turner.
And I love all the Thunderdome stuff, but I hate all the kid stuff. You don't like Tina
Turner?
She's fine in it. She can't act for crap, but she's fine in the movie. Fury Road, I was really worried about how long it took to make that movie and if it was going to be good. And of course,
it's really good.
Tom Hardy as Max instead of Mel Gibson. No, I was not wanting that. The movie's awesome.
Yeah, there was just things that happening there.
But Furiosa is a direct prequel to Fury Road, and learning who Charlize Theron's character is. There was already a big backlash from a lot of people about, oh great, we're getting another female person because instead of Max, and I'm like, this is the same director and writer, or maybe not writer, same director, every single film. And for people that don't know, I don't even know if you know this or not, this movie, the idea or the backstory was written before Fury Road, or while he made Fury Road, because this is how he knew who Furiosa was for Fury Road. He had already created this entire backstory. Now, there may be elements that were changed for the script or whatever, but when he created the character, he's like, I always knew I wanted to tell Furiosa's story.
Nice.
And he's supposedly going to tell another Mad Max story, but we'll see if we still get it. I don't like that he didn't bring Charlize Theron back.
Was that not her in that one clip?
The end stuff?
I mean, I know they used some other stuff.
I don't know.
But I feel like
it might have been it, but it may have been one of those, either a deleted scene or
a cut from something else.
From the previous film. I don't remember because I don't think they showed that in the other film. So it could be a scene that got thrown away or just an angle where you don't see and figure out who it is. Because she didn't come back. She said herself she didn't come back.
Oh, okay.
But she wanted to. So I think that's probably one of my only beefs. I really love this new movie. I think one of my beefs with this movie, though, is because you're following Furiosa from childhood. We got a section with her in childhood, and then we got Anya Taylor-Joy's version. I would have loved to see it then jump ahead to the Charlize Theron version. We have 3 eras of her as opposed to just keeping Taylor-Joy. That being said, Anya Taylor-Joy was fantastic.
She's just good in everything. Can I just say?
Yeah.
I love her.
You used to hate her.
No, I didn't.
Or you used to be annoyed by her.
Was I?
Yeah, I think it was just her face kind of thing.
No, but I like her.
Yeah.
I don't know where you got that.
I think you had a problem with her in New Mutants.
Maybe I think I just don't like New Mutants.
Well, the New Mutants movie's there, but
no, because for sure I just everything since then, and like the Queen's Gambit and this and that other Vikings movie and even the witch movie. I don't like the movie, but she's good in it.
Well, you know what movie got her this part is the Edgar Wright movie. Somebody, I forgot who it said, had George Miller watch this movie, but it's the one where
let me see if
it's they're at the hotel or whatever it is, and they're splitting between 2 eras. So like, like she's in the 50s or 60s or whatever, and then the other girls in the other era staying at that hotel.
Oh yes, with the go-go.
Yes. He watched her performance of that, and that's when he decided to cast her that.
Nice. Yeah.
They showed her that.
The one with I don't want to spoil what happens because you need to watch that. You got to watch it. What is it?
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Moving on.
Okay.
It's Night at something or whatever.
Yes.
Not the Roxbury.
Not the Roxbury at all. A Night in Soho. Last Night in Soho.
Yeah.
Such a good movie too.
Anyway, so what'd you think of the movie?
I enjoyed it. Okay, I'm not going to be a haterade.
No.
I liked it. I really did. I think one of the things I appreciate about every single movie is you get action right away.
Yeah.
Like you get a little story enough to know what's happening, and then we just go into it. And I liked it. And it's interesting to see where she came from, so you understand where Charlize is trying to go. And later on, and it makes a big circle, and it all makes a lot of sense, and it fills in, some of the information about her, where she come from, how to get there. I just thought it was really well done. And I liked seeing some of the characters that we know later on, like still be there. Like that one guy's creepy, yo.
Which one?
You're
talking about the fat guy with the big legs?
No, the main dude.
Immortal Joe?
Yes.
With the face mask?
Yeah. That's creepy.
I was sad that but they did a good job. You couldn't tell the difference.
No, I thought it was the same dude.
No, because the other guy passed away.
He's not with us.
Bummed that, for those of you who don't know, the guy that plays Immortan Joe in Fury Road is the same actor that plays the main bad guy in the original Mad Max.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice I believe it is this one? Yeah, it was this one, where there's, I think it was this one, or maybe it was Fury Road. No, I think it was this one, where there's the one guy with the eye patch and big hair, and it looks like the same hair from the guy in the original Mad
Max. Yeah. That was
but it's
cool.
like a wig or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one does a good job of like threading the needle into both movies, and so you get a lot of familiar characters again, while not needing Max necessarily for this part of the story, but not sidelining him either. It's telling us, it essentially tells us the story. How did we get to Fury Road?
Mm-hmm.
And while learning who she was, because in Fury Road we get her. She's a mysterious character. Why is she doing this? I didn't like that there was a lot more CGI this time around than they've done in the past. But I also understand growing with cinema.
Yeah.
Like, he always made these movies with straight up hardcore thing, and all that's still here. It's just there's some enhancements, there's some camera work, there's some different things that were a little artsy that probably didn't need to be done that way, and I do think it mildly takes you out of what we're used to in the Mad Max world, but not enough that it made me not like the movie.
That is the only thing I did not like in the movie was the moments where some of the thing was sped up.
Oh, see, I love that stuff because they do it in every movie.
No.
Yes, they do. He does it in every movie.
And it's not. It was very noticeable in this, and it was odd.
And I think it's probably because it was in a higher def film.
I guess.
Because if you watch it when he zooms in on people and they're driving their cars.
No, not the zoom
No. I'm just saying when you do that, people are moving around quick, and they've done that in a lot of the movies and a lot of, maybe not as often, but it's a lot of like.
No, but this was like fast forwarding, like the people moving really fast. It was awkward. The zooming in, I'm okay with because that happens in all of them.
I know that, but
it's the moving fat, like the.
Yeah.
No, I can't handle that. It's weird. It's odd. It felt really odd and out of place. That's the only thing I did not like.
I will say, as much as I loved Chris Hemsworth's character in this movie, he does come off a little cartoonish at times.
Yeah.
But I think it's by design. I think we're at a little bit different place initially than when you get to Fury Road, even though it's not far from that by the time we get to her. You're in kind of a different era initially when she's younger.
Yeah.
And so I think you get a little bit different things. And I think also they expand the world bigger than we've ever gotten before. Before this, Thunderdome was really the only time. The first movie you had a little bit of expansion because you were living in what seemed like your normal world. But Thunderdome at least expanded where you had that little mountain area where the kids were at, but then you had the village where a barter town, and so you got some different stuff other than just desert.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, you go into like 3-4 different locations, and some is green, some is black, and it's expanding the world, which I loved. But then it started making like, wait a minute, Mad Max is too big now,
Yeah, but and I mean, some of those were mentioned in Fury Road.
But it's also a different time period initially, and that's why you can expand us more of that.
Yeah, I mean, but we have.
But I love this movie. I thought it was great. Road Warrior will still be the best. I don't think it's on par with Fury Road as good, but I still think it's a great film.
I liked it. I thought it was good. I even have the T-shirt.
Yeah, she got that T-shirt because it don't fit me. That's why.
Yeah, well,
But I do think this is a perfect example of a movie that needs to be seen on the biggest, loudest screen possible because the cars are loud, the guns, the over-the-top action, the craziness. It's a fun flick, man.
It is a lot of fun.
Everything I wanted in Mad Max. It was a little weird for the chapters.
Yeah.
But I think that was just trying to separate her.
At times it feels a little long, just so you know.
I didn't see it. I never felt like it felt long. Although it is one of those movies that has about 3 or 4 endings.
Yeah, it
potential.
Felt long to me.
I felt the chapters just felt different because we've never done that before.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it reminded me of Creed 3.
Yes.
Where you get the same thing, but they're trying to put a different spin. So when we see that fight at the end of the movie, and they're trying to do that thing where they're just the only 2 people in the ring, and makes that weird effect that wasn't necessary. I got what they were going for, but we've never seen that kind of artsy crap in a Rocky movie.
It becomes a lot.
So, but this one is probably the biggest movie in the series, and one I can't wait to watch again.
Yeah, I'll watch it again.
It does bring everything we like: the crazy vehicles, insane stunts, the crazy action.
Here's my other problem, by the way.
What?
We're in a place where we don't have gas for cars, and they're going to build the biggest, most gas-guzzling cars we can, the V8s and tanker trucks. Like, this makes no sense in any of these movies.
Because the ones that build those cars have the gas.
It's just dumb. They're wasting their resources.
Well, you know
So
the resource, but remember, there's that whole one place that's Gastown.
I know,
so
but still.
they can, and you know, Gastown has the biggest trucks because
I
they have all the
know,
gas.
They have a gas thing.
Anyway, I will
just
say
dumb.
there is a character that's kind of what I refer to as dollar store Mad Max that I was not a fan of, but I'm glad he exists in the way he did because he has a major point, and he's not supposed to be Max. He's not, but he has that vibe that then I think makes a little more sense of her quicker connection with Max and Fury Road.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because you know she butts heads with him for the whole movie in Fury Road, but she seems willing to watch him, but kind of latch onto him.
Yeah.
Because this kind of separates, like, okay, she's seen a person like this before. When she starts seeing him, you know, we wouldn't know this now, but if you go back and watch moments where she sees him doing certain things or handling things a certain way, now I can almost envision she's remembering this guy. You know, even though that had nothing to do with it at that time.
Yeah.
Or did it because he wrote all those ideas before. You know, it's those little story details that you have no idea what George Miller was coming up with at the time. Yeah, I also find it very funny that George Miller has made these incredibly violent, crazy, gas-guzzling, bullet hailing movies, and then he also made Happy Feet and Babe Pig in the City, stuff like that. It cracks me up. He also made that movie with what's her face and Idris Elba about the genie. He made that movie.
Oh, 1,000 Years of Longing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was his movie after Fury Road.
I mean.
Anyway, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, is in theaters now. Sadly, it was #1, but it still didn't do the numbers everybody expected it to do. So hopefully it'll have some legs.
I liked it.
It's got good reviews. So
just do it.
The weird thing is, I had one person, I don't know if you saw that commented on my review of it, that just said hard pass.
Well, they're dumb.
But I don't know and I responded, you're not a Mad Max fan. They said nothing. So I don't know if it's a hard pass because it's a female, or if it's a hard pass because they don't like Mad Max.
I think so, because it's that same person that also doesn't like black people.
Well, yeah, in theory, yeah. So we'll see.
I'm gonna just be a truth teller.
Yeah,
You're a hater.
That's our thing. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't care if anyone wants to see anything. You don't have to watch them if you don't want to watch it. But
you don't have to like anything we like, but don't be a hater just for the sake of hating.
Don't have a stupid reason.
There you go.
Anyway, moving on.
All right.
Was it my turn?
Over to you, my
What
love.
am I looking at? What am I telling you?
Things that are coming out.
It is a holiday week, so there's a lot of stuff coming out, but not really at the same time. The movie Damaged with Samuel Jackson we talked about a few weeks ago was coming out.
That's pretty good.
There's a movie with Anthony Hopkins called One Life, which I believe is about a Holocaust something or other. Of course, Arthur the King that we talked about. Anatomy of a Fall is coming out, so we'll probably go ahead and watch it. Finally watched it. We never got to watch it. We'll probably try to talk about it next week. Girl Fight, the movie that made Michelle Rodriguez famous, is actually coming to the Criterion Collection. Wow. Cry Baby with Johnny Depp is getting a 4K release, as well as a new Batman 4K steelbook, the original Michael Keaton Batman. Bob Marley One Love, a movie is coming out to 4K and Blu-ray. In the Land of Saints and Sinners, the Liam Neeson movie is coming out.
Is that the very Irish one?
Yes. Well, it's not very Irish. It's shot in Ireland.
It's very Irish.
I don't know if this movie is getting just streaming or Blu-ray, because I know it's coming to streaming, if not already.
It's pretty good.
A movie I've been waiting for called Sasquatch Sunset that I really want to watch. Okay. You've seen the trailer where the one with the actual Sasquatches?
But they don't speak English or anything?
No.
They're just...
It's either going to be pure brilliance or stupid as can be. And either way, I'm there for it.
I think it's going to be fun.
It's got great reviews. So those are the big things. Kung Fu Panda 4 is hitting this week on Blu-ray and 4K and whatnot. I think that's it.
All right. Well, coming out to the theater or on the line, again, short week, so we'll see what happens. Tuesday, coming on video demand and digital, a movie called Boy Kills World. The only description you see is it's a dystopian action film.
That is a movie. It came out at the theater.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, that's the one with Skarsgård.
Oh, the other Skarsgård.
Which is like a video game.
The clown Skarsgård.
Yeah. This movie looks fantastically violent and fun. I want to see it so bad.
Okay.
Well, I missed it at the theater.
It's coming out online, babe.
I have already emailed them, asked them if they have any screening links now that's coming digital, but I don't think so. So I'm either going to pay for it or I'm going to wait until they send it to me. I don't mind paying for it. I'm not saying that. It's just I so want to see that movie.
Also coming out on video demand and digital on Tuesday, a movie called The Legends of Cat Claw's Mountain. It says a magical family adventure. According to the legend, There is a pony that hides in a mountain, and if you can capture it, you get treasures or something. I don't know. If you're interested, go watch that. Sorry, I didn't know much about that one. But also Video Demand and Digital on Tuesday, The Execution. They've been hunting this serial killer, right, for 10 years. But it says even when he's caught, they can't prove he actually did anything. So now people are like personally trying to decide, can they go get them themselves? What are they going to do? I don't know. Okay, coming out on Netflix on Wednesday. This looks interesting. The new Netflix movie is called Bionic. We're in the year 2035, where many people have bionic prosthetics, and that's kind of the people that dominate society now. So sounds really interesting. Coming out Thursday to Prime Video, Die Hard 2, Die Harder.
Okay, so let's make some clarity.
Collection.
Yeah, so people don't think this is a new thing. It's not. So I don't remember where it showed up. Was it Roku maybe?
Yeah, originally, yeah.
So if you've never seen Die Hard,
Die
Hard was like a mini thing on whatever that thing that went away. It came out, Quibi.
Yes, it was free on Quibi. You could watch the little
episodes.
Yeah,
and there were little episodes that it was Kevin Hart and John Travolta, and it was about Kevin Hart playing himself. He wanted to be an action star. It's a great little thing. And eventually they released it to Amazon Prime as one movie.
All one movie.
Because each episode was like 8 minutes, 10 minutes, something, whatever.
Yeah.
So Die Hard 2, Die Harder, was the same thing. It was released on, I believe, Roku in the same element.
Yeah.
And now they've brought together.
So
this time it's Kevin Hart and John Cena, but the rest of a lot of the same cast from the previous one. So it's coming to Amazon. I believe it's Prime Video.
Prime Video.
Prime Video.
So go watch Die Hard and then watch Die.
You definitely need to watch the first one if you haven't seen part 2.
Yeah, Die Hard.
If you haven't seen it.
Okay, then we jump straight to Friday. Coming out in theaters, a movie called Ezra.
Oh, I know about this movie.
Robert De Niro, Vera Farmiga, Whoopi Goldberg, Rose Byrne, Rainn Wilson, Bobby Cannavale.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's about a Bobby Carnival. I know, I like to say Carnival. Bobby Cannavale plays a guy whose son is on the spectrum. He's a comedian.
Yes.
His dealing with him and his father, his father is kind of at odds with everything. It looks fantastic.
It looks really good. So check it out.
I didn't know it was already coming out.
Also coming out to theaters, a movie called Backspot. It's a cheerleader movie. Evan Rachel Wood's now the coach. Can you imagine? She's now like the adult.
How old are we?
I know. That's what I said. Can you imagine? Evan Rachel Wood is now the cheerleading coach of these demanding so much out of these kids that are going to this competition. And one of the girls has to deal with her anxiety that could bring the whole thing crashing down. Also coming to theaters, this one's interesting if you're into animation films. It's called Haiku, the Dumpster Battle.
That sounds something like you'd be involved in.
It is an Asian film, and it's about these, these people, and they fight in this the middle school nemesis, and they have a clash, and they're trying to build a weapon that can beat the other one in something called the Dumpster Battle. I don't know anything about these things. Let's see. Oh, that's coming out. I'm going to skip. Video Demand and Digital, an adventure film called Gasoline Rainbow. It's teenagers in a small town go on an adventure, and we'll see what happens. The Disney movie this week, it's a documentary on Jim Henson. It's called Jim Henson Idea Man, and I know we will watch that and interviews a bunch of people from his time in life. Also, Video Demand Digital, a movie called What You Wished For. Down on his luck chef with gambling problems.
Oh, I've seen something about this too.
Woo, he ends up in Latin America and
I've seen Nick Stahl
he's in trouble. Yeah, and then just all this other stuff happens and says, will a twist of fate bring him back? We will find out.
The next one, we're gonna
okay, also this movie, The Dead Don't Hurt. It's called a story of star-crossed lovers in the western U.S. frontier in 1860. Oh, it's Vigo.
Yeah, I already have a screening link for it. So
I'll watch anything with Vigo.
We'll watch it.
Also, Video Demand and Digital thing called The Young Wife. On the wedding day, they think marital bliss. Yay. But chaos ensues on this wedding
chaos.
Day. Chaos. So, there was something else I thought I wanted to mention, but maybe not. I guess that's it.
I don't think there's a lot of big stuff this week.
There's not a lot coming out this week because of the holiday. Oh, it's a limited release. I hope. If this is near you, I want to see this. If you get anything about that, it's called The Commandant's Shadow. It's a documentary, okay, and it's
somebody who was a
about
Nazi.
yes, it is about the son of this guy Hans Jürgen Haas, who was a commandant at the Auschwitz camp. Okay, it's his son. His son's old now. I mean, he's in his 80s. And about the real life survivor from the camp, this other Jewish prisoner, and they bring the two of them face to face with each
Why are
other.
you yelling at me? Have you seen the other one? I don't remember. You probably talked about it. I don't know if it's called The Tattoo Artist or The Nazi's Tattoo. Or
yes.
the,
Oh,
whatever.
with the man.
The guy that's job was to
forced
tattoo
him.
Yeah,
they would
tattoo
force
the
him to
numbers.
put the numbers on people's arms. Oh my gosh, I want to see that too. Anyways, that's what's coming out.
All right, we got a lot of new stuff this week for giveaways.
Let's put it
Matter
on
of fact, I
screen.
think everything on here, with the exception of one, is all brand new.
I hope I got
Maybe
them
two
right.
of them. I do too. So we got copies of Creation of the Gods 1, Kingdom of Storms, which we'll be talking about next week. We have digital copies of The Fall Guy, the one that's in theater still, with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt,
Wow.
which also has an extended edition. It's like 20-something minutes extra footage.
Wow.
We have copies of Dune Part 2, which we will discuss again next week
Yes,
after
I'm
this one
watching it
finally
today.
sees it. We still got a couple copies of the Ocean's Trilogy, as well as the American Sniper 4K release, which Bradley Cooper, I rewatched it. That movie is fantastic. It's such a great movie. And also the latest movie, Blind War, which is a martial arts action flick.
Okay, we're coming. I think
Sorry,
Timmy's
she
stuck in a
come
well.
galloping in. So we got a bunch of little new things. I expect a couple other new things here soon.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here, for watching the show. Obviously, the dog needs to go outside, so we are going to take them, and we will see you next week.
She picked up